You can use GUIs. I'm not saying you should not use GUIs. You should use GUIs when you need a GUI. I don't think anyone here thought about using Photoshop as a CLI, did they? Because this is not what I'm advocating for, okay? Don't do that, okay? I haven't tried, but I don't think it's a very nice experience. So GUIs are good for things like discoverability, for non-repetitive tasks, or for dealing with multimedia. But none of those are things that we used to do in our day-to-day as engineers. There's, of course, edge cases. There always are. But discoverability is also something we don't very frequently, right? When we approach a task, we usually know what we want to do. We have a goal in mind. We have a purpose. So we can just go there and want to accomplish the task in the most efficient way possible. We also don't do many repetitive tasks, but our tasks, they might not be repetitive in purpose, but they're repetitive in nature. Everyone needs to move files around, needs to transfer files from one machine to another, needs to transform text, needs to convert things. There's so many different kinds of tasks that they're repetitive in nature. You're not doing the exact same thing, but if you know how to use a CLI, those tasks just become faster. Also multimedia, okay, there's many edge cases to this one if you're a front-end developer or if you're dealing with graphics or videos or things like that. Well, maybe you have to use tools that have GUIs because that's the right abstraction and that's fine. You should use a GUI when you need a GUI. But when you're writing code, when you're dealing with the infrastructure and that kind of task, well, then probably a CLI would do the job better. So I'll stick to the opinion that GUIs are bloatware, but they're bloatware for what we do most of the time. And this is really a problem which has to do with the symbols we share and how we share them, right? We need to use the right abstractions in the right context. When we're talking to machines, it's usually easier to use structured text. It's easier to use a language which is closer to what the machine understands and to the way it communicates with you. When you use visual abstractions, many times they're not accurate. And that causes problems, that causes mismatches, that causes problems in communication, in language. So this is not really a technology problem. This is more of a communication problem. And communication is a very hard thing to get right. Not only in technology, in any problem domain. Marcel Duchamp once said that as soon as we start putting our thoughts into words and sentences, everything gets distorted. Language is just no good. I use it because I have to, but I don't put any trust in it. We never understand each other. Se eu estivesse falando português com vocês agora, provavelmente seria muito difícil de entender. And that's why I am speaking English, because if I was speaking Portuguese to you, as I just said, it would be very, very hard to understand. So we need to use the right language for the right problem. We need to use the right abstractions. So really, this is all about speaking the same language. It's all about having shared abstractions, having more precise vocabulary to describe what you're going to do, and therefore making things less magic. And this is a big problem I have with IDEs, because you have so many magic buttons that do so much, that when something goes wrong, the output you get, which is usually something that was just like taken out from a terminal, you don't know what to do, because you're not used to that kind of language. You're not used to that kind of abstraction, because you don't know what's happening behind the hood. When you use CLIs, you're aware of that, and therefore you know how to fix, you know what's happening. And I think IDEs, they're good. They're good when you either know CLIs already, or when you're starting out. But once you're ready, you can go a level deeper in the layers of abstraction so you can actually understand what's really going on. And now, let's go to the how. So this is like the holy trinity of the terminal. These are the tools I use. Might want to use different ones. Just don't use Emacs, okay? So I'll start with Zosh, right? Okay, so what is Zosh or Z shell? Well, Z shell is a shell. Oh, what a surprise, right? So what is a shell? Not this kind of shell, this kind of shell. So a shell is just a user interface for you to access your operating system services. So it's just a program, right? A shell is simply a program. Bash is a program, sh is a program, fish is an animal, but it's also a program. And all of those, well, it's important to differentiate them from the actual different parts that you have when you're dealing with a terminal. So when you're dealing with a terminal, you have many different pieces, and it's important to not get confused with them. First, you have the terminal. which is the actual physical thing that you go there, you type in comments, you get responses and stuff. You have the terminal emulator, which is just the emulator of the real thing. That's the name. And the shell, which can be Zosh, Bash, Fish, whatever. And by the way, the terminal emulator I use is iTerm. I really liked it. I've been using it for a while. It's very easy to configure, very easy to port configurations from one place to another. I've heard the Mac terminal, the native one, is quite good. But to be honest, I haven't tried it out, but by all means, have a go. And now just going one level deeper. So I would like to just give you a sense of how these things communicate, and also get an opportunity to talk a bit about streams. So when you use an emulator, what happens is that your keyboard, it provides some input to your emulator, which then passes it to something we call the TTY driver, which handles data to and from programs. And that is what communicates to your programs. And your programs can have streams attached to them so that they can get things through standard input and give back output to standard error or standard output. And it's really important to know how those things work so you can use them efficiently. And basically what happens is your input goes all the way from your keyboard to your emulator to your TTI to the programs and gets back to your monitor. And if you want to dig one level deeper in these abstractions, I've also written a blog post about this, which is very long, by the way. The comments are not as good as the last one. They're also fun to read. So I highly recommend that if you're more into streams, but I would probably need another 30 minutes if I was going to get into that. But OK, so why do you use Zosh? Well, you can just try out running this, /bin/sh, and you can feel the difference yourself. But I like Zosh because of its auto-completion features, because of its plugins. The plugins make my life so much easier. It's also so much easier to configure. It's very customizable. And also, it's so easy to navigate around. And if that didn't convince you, there's also a plugin called Chuck, which generates Chuck Norris phrases. You can pipe them into Calsay. Very fun. If you're in that 2000s vibe, of course. I don't think that was very fun. To manage my Zosh configuration, I use All My Zosh. So All My Zosh helps me get my configuration streamlined. It's just like a community-driven framework for managing your Zosh configuration. Just makes things a bit easier for you, especially if you're getting started, if you don't want to, do many things manually yourself and, go all the way down the abstraction pyramid. Finally, we have Tmux, which is a terminal multiplexer, which is a very nice name, isn't it? A very fancy name. All it does is split windows. So Tmux helps me organize my workflow and also separate what I'm doing and switch context very fast. So Tmux makes your terminal look like this. This is my setup with iTerm, Zosh, and Tmux. So that bottom bar, the beautiful bar down there, all the split panes, all that is all Tmux. And I like Tmux because, as I said, it just allows me to organize my workflow better. Because Tmux has the concept of a server which stores your sessions. So it means you do not always need to be attached to a session so that you can get things running. So when I'm at work, I'll usually have a session for work where I'll do work things. And when I'm at home, I'll have just a home session, or if I'm writing a blog, I'll probably do a different session so I can manage all those tools, all that setup. If I'm in the middle of a task and I need to go out somewhere, I'll just detach and I'll just attach it later. If I have to switch context to do support or anything like that, it's very easy to get out of what you're doing and get back to it without losing the context of where you are, which tools you have open, where you stopped. That's why I like Tmux so much. So you have the server, which is always running in the background. You have sessions, which you can attach or detach to. And those sessions have panes or tabs, if you prefer. And those tabs contains windows. So those windows you can resize, you can make them bigger, you can zoom in, you can rearrange them. It's very useful for doing many things at a time. One of the things I really like doing is having some code running on the left and also split it and have a small pane running my test on the side. Also, like sometimes have a small one, open a small one for committing, for checking Git, and things like that. By the way, I don't use a text-based browser, if anyone's wondering. So these are some of the plugins that I use. I'm not going to go over all of them. But two that I think they're very useful are Tmux Continuum and Tmux Resurrect, which allows you to save and reload your sessions automatically, continuously, and persist them between shutdowns and restarts so that you don't lose your context. Most of the other things is just to make it fancier and more, and make it prettier, so that you can impress your friends, because that's a very important thing, right? And finally, oh God, Vim. Yes, I like that attitude. So Vim is my text editor of choice. And some people say that Vim is hard, right? It's hard because it's different, but it's also better because it's different. Right? Vim's learning curve is very, very steep. I would say sometimes it's just a straight line up. But once you get up there, man, the view is so nice. But I actually use NeoVim, not just Vim. And NeoVim is just a continuation and extension of Vim. I use NeoVim mostly because it has better support for asynchronous tasks. Because when I was using Vim, something that really, really bothered me was that when I was saving files and I was running syntax checks on them, or type checking and all that kind of stuff, Vim would freeze for a few minutes because those tasks were running synchronously in the same thread as Vim. And losing 5 seconds of my life, oh God, that was painful. Also, it has better scripting alternatives like Lua. And, well, if you has anyone here ever had to write something in Vim language, VimL? Oh, I feel for you. I'm so sorry. So sorry. So Lua is so much easier to write, and I was just more friendly. So I was also told, by the way, that Vim 8 has support for synchronous tasks, but now that I switched to NeoVim, I have to go back and try it out to see how it's going. And many people ask me, oh, why do you use Vim? Like, why does it matter? You know, is it really that cool? Yes, it's that cool. And, well, it matters because this is not just about writing code faster. Because most of the time, you're not writing code, are you? Most of the time, you're thinking. You're solving problems in your head, and you're putting them down. The problem is that many times, you have so much in your head, and it takes so long to put it down that it's very hard to keep that cognitive load running in your mind so you can remember everything and get things done. So Vim is not about writing code faster. It's about writing thoughts faster so that you don't have to keep that in your mind. It's about reducing drudgery, right? Repetitive tasks, things that just take time and don't add value. Right? Many times when you're editing code, you need to go up there, go down here, copy this line, put this there, switch between this and this. It's just annoying. Many of those tasks are just repetitive and annoying. And Vim provides you very nice ways of dealing with that. Very fast ways, very efficient ways. And things that make you just happier overall. And it's also about ergonomics. Right? Can you imagine having to move the mouse around all the time you need to edit a piece of text, put a cursor there, put a cursor here, select this, select that? I really don't like it. I think Vim is much more ergonomic. You have all your shortcuts at the reach of your fingers. Just so nice, so sweet. As you can see, I really like Vim, okay? I have a tattoo, right? That's how serious I'm about it. So now let me tell you how to become a pro. First thing, Vim Tutor. I cannot emphasize enough how great Vim Tutor is. So Vim Tutor is basically an interactive tutorial for you to so you just have a piece of text and it has instructions for you on how to edit things, how to move around. It's just basically a huge manual page which is editable. And basically just run around editing that manual page and doing things and following the instructions there. So Vim Tutor is great for getting started. Just download Vim. If you have 15, 20 spare minutes, that's enough a day. If you do it like for 5 minutes a day, probably in like 32 years you get there. I've been doing it since I was 2. That's why I managed to get around at 24. So, second thing, do things the Vim way. Right? Learn about the anti-patterns, learn about how to detect, how to notice when you're doing things wrong. Right? And doing things the Vim way has a lot to do with going vanilla. Because when you do things the Vim way, when you learn them properly, when you learn how to use panes, when you learn the native shortcuts, when you learn how to set up options yourself, you don't need that many plugins. And hunting around for plugins is very annoying, and it also detaches you a bit from that Vim experience. I think that we should not aim to make Vim an IDE. Right? That's not our goal, right? We should aim to use Vim as it was meant to be used. So go vanilla. Try doing things. If they feel painful, then you go for a plugin. But start as vanilla as possible. Learn the fundamentals. And always ask yourself, is there a better way of doing this? This is extremely important, especially because in Vim, 99% of the time, there is. Oh, by the way, just another detail on doing things the Vim way. Here's a golden tip, okay? When you start using Vim, disable the arrow keys and disable support for the mouse. I know, sounds hard, but it's the very first thing I've done was to copy and paste those configurations into my vimrc file. And that made me so much better in it. Really, it's definitely worth doing, okay? And by the way, if you disable your arrow keys, disable them in edition mode too, okay? Arrow keys are not allowed. Forbidden arrow keys, okay? You can use them for other applications, right? Not for Vim. And finally, resist the urge to quit, which is not very hard, is it? I mean, no one knows how to do it anyway. I mean, I have another MacBook at home which runs Vim. That's why I brought this one for running Keynote, because I never actually end up quitting. Okay, I'll answer this question, right? I'll do it for you. You know, you seem really nice people. This is how you quit. Just in case you don't know. Sometimes, the thing is, sometimes this won't work. Isn't it amazing? Because you're gonna have written some things on your text file. And Vim is a very good friend. Vim won't let you lose your precious work. So what do you do when things don't work? Come on, what do? You scream at them. So this allows you to quit without saving. Amazing, but dangerous, okay? So if you're not sure, prepend a W to that, just to be sure. So some of the Vim plugins I use, these are the ones I consider to be essential. I really like Nerdtree because it gives me a very nice tree structure so that I can see how my files are placed, so I can manage folders and I can do all those things. I know people that don't like using Nerdtree, that just use native features to deal with files and moving them around and all that, and you can definitely do it. I just think it's more comfortable, let's put it like that. There's FZF, which is kind of like Control P. I don't know if anyone here uses Control P. Okay, everyone's using FZF, right? Oh, okay, you. So I'll give you a tip. Switch to FZF. It's very nice. Okay, he uses it now. See? My predictions are 100% accurate when they're about the past. So FZF allows you to find files very quickly. So it's just a fuzzy finder, so you can fire up, find files without having to, go through directories and all that kind of stuff. Because I do JavaScript development, I do a lot of markup. I also use Mmat, which gives me very, very nice shortcuts for doing things very fast. So I can write markup, in no time. I use AO. This is not beer, okay? This stands for Asynchronous Linting Engine. And what it allows you to do is not having all those plugins for different languages that you use to lint things. So if you're using JavaScript, for example, you can configure it to run preacher when you save files, or ESLint, or whatever linter or code formatter you're using. So it's very, very useful, very fast. Then there's also NeoMake, which allows you to run tasks asynchronously. The whole thing I've said about saving and things being slow because of syntax checks, because of type checks, all that kind of thing. And then there's language-specific plugins, which you should definitely get one for the language you're writing. I know. If you're writing JavaScript, get a JavaScript plugin. If you're writing Rust, get a Rust plugin. If you're writing Go, get a Go plugin. If you're writing Java, I'm sorry. No, just kidding. Java's nice. There's also, next thing, general tips and references. So now I'm going to go very, very general. Very general. So a few extra tips for you. Be very mindful of your dot files. Organize them nicely. Share them. And always be looking forward to read others' dot files. So this allows you to discover new and better ways of doing things. Right? Like when you go to a conference and you talk to people, and you're like, oh, I didn't know you could do this in this way. Or I didn't know there was a better way to do this. So dot files allow you to do this. Also, I try to do more using less. So try to use few programs to accomplish more tasks so that your workflow gets simpler. That's what we want, right? We don't want complex things. We want simple things. We want to accomplish more using less. Also, learn one trick at a time, right? Because you're not going to go out of here and become a Vim pro. I mean, maybe you will, but that'll probably take a few days, weeks, months? No one knows. Also, automate everything, right? This is, I mean, kind of everyone agrees with this, right? Automate everything. Everything that's automatable, just go on, automate it. And if you don't have the time to automate it or you think it's not worth, a very nice tip that I got these days was to do nothing scripts, which, as the name says, do nothing. All they do is provide you instructions which you can step through. So you just echo things and you wait for the user to press enter so that they won't forget the steps of those tasks. And because you have that, you can automate them gradually. So if you have a step that you know, oh, I can automate this very quickly, so you go on and automate that. And next time you run the do nothing script, well, it's going to have that part automated. You're going to run to the next. Oh, maybe I need to do this manually. So you go on, do it manually. And gradually, you can automate the things you need. And this is also very nice because it allows you to, because when you have a script that you can just see how many times it was run, you know, like, oh, I'm doing this thing too frequently. Perhaps it's time to automate it. So you can use data to prove that your choices were worth the time. And also learn the fundamentals. This is also really important. I cannot emphasize it enough. And it's very important not only for you to know the machine you're dealing with, to know how things work behind the hood, but also because whenever you're having to pair with someone, whenever you're in a different machine, you're pretty much good to go everywhere, right? It's the lowest common denominator, not rocks and sticks. So just a few other things, a few other tips that are on my tool belt. So streams, do learn how to use streams. You know what I've said about how the TTY driver works, about how the emulator works, all of that. If you have a very good knowledge of streams, you can combine programs very easily, you can know when things go wrong. It's just going to make your life easier. Also, when you're writing JavaScript libraries, because I write lots of libraries that deal with tests, I have to worry a lot about this because, you know, when you're running testing tools, you want to provide nice output to the user, you want to output errors to the right stream, you want users to have their output nicely formatted when they get it back. SED, which is, oh, SED is such a nice piece of software, man. I just love it so much. So SED basically allows you to, SED stands for stream editor, so you can just like, basically what I use it mostly for is just like running some regular expressions, transforming things on files. It's very flexible, has many features, it's very nice. And also it's very good to know regular expressions if you're using Vim, because when you need to replace something, many times you go for a macro. So a macro in Vim is just when you record a set of actions and you play them back and back and back and back again. And with SED, many times you can replace those with a simple, maybe not so simple, regular expression and get things done very quickly. There's also AG, which is a file finder. So you can use AG. I use AG mostly with FZF, so you can configure FZF to use AG behind the hood, so you can find files very fast. You have AWK, so you can get your output, pieces of your output nicely, I wouldn't say nicely formatted, but extract pieces of your output to pipe it into SED or combine it with other programs and get the meaningful information you want out of a piece of output. There's also curl, which is so useful. So curls allow you to do requests. So curl goes, by the way, very well with JQ, which is a tool that lets you manage JSON output. So one of the things I do is I combine curl a lot with JQ. So for example, when I do an HTTP request, when I'm testing an API or something, I can do a request with curl. I can get the output, pipe it into JQ, extract the pieces of JSON I need to get a result, to see if things have gone wrong or right. And then I just pipe it into a file. Very, very practical, very easy, very nice. Very fast as well. There's also make, which is very old school, but so simple to use. And there's also this legend that only one make file was ever written, and all of other make files are just copies of that, with a few tweaks. It's a bit complicated, but it's string complete. It's very nice. Cron, please, you know, just very, very basic. Vimium. Oh, Vimium is very nice as well. So Vimium allows me to use my browser with Vim Shortcuts. So when I'm navigating the page, I just press F, and everything will light up. And I'll be able to use my keyboard to navigate, click on links, go back and forth, see my history. Very, very nice. No need for a mouse. You know, especially if it's an Apple mouse, those are very expensive. You can save a lot of money by using Vimium, okay? Also, it's a very good tool for noticing when websites are not accessible. Because when you press F on Vimium, it basically uses some accessibility features. It uses the markup to light up what you can click on or what you can interact with. So if a website is not very accessible, not many things will light up. And you can easily notice, right? So if you're developing a website and you use Vimium, it will not be accessible to you. So accessibility matters. And then man, which just gives you manual pages. That, I might say, is the most useful command in all that list, right? When in doubt, always just go and read the manual. You always find the answers there. I know it's very, very hard to get used to Unix manual pages, but once you've read a few, like 3002, things that are the ideal number, you get used to them. And it's just very, very nice to be able to find your way around programs without having to go to Stack Overflow. Most of the times I do, but being able to read manual pages is a very, very useful skill. If you need some dot files, I highly recommend mine. This is not a biased opinion. So if you go there, you find many nice things. One of the things that I've done, by the way, is because macOS allows you to have dot files, allows you to have files which configure your Mac. You can do a bunch of native Mac configuration using dot files. So that's very, very nice if you're on a Mac machine. There's configurations for Vim, for Tmux, for a whole bunch of stuff. Highly, highly recommend. There's so many dot files around GitHub. If you just go into the search and type dot files and you go to the most starred ones, you can get some pretty nice ideas. But I try to keep my dot files as minimal as possible and try to go as vanilla as possible so that I feel comfortable anywhere. And I highly recommend you to do the same. So, a few of my blog posts, if you Google this, it's probably the first resort, the title, because, it's the title of my post. This one is also very interesting if you're interested in about learning more about streams. So learning about streams, by the way, is not only good for you to use CLIs, but it's also good for you to understand what your machine is doing. Highly, highly recommend. This is a huge, huge post, by the way, so take a few minutes, hours maybe, to read it. Then there's Stone Rider's blog. This is an amazing, amazing resource. So his blog is called Arabesque. It's about system tools and terminal science, as Tom calls it. Very good resource, especially for learning about Vim anti-patterns and that kind of stuff. He has a huge, huge article about Vim anti-patterns, in which he explains things like, oh, if you're pressing a key more than twice in Vim, you're doing something wrong. There's an easier way of doing this. Moving around, replacing things, all of that. Very, very useful resource. So that's it. I think I finished 5 minutes early, so we can have questions. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we will have time for one question. Someone? Burning with a question?
Anyone?
Oh, nice. There it is. There we go. Please stand up and ask your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for the talk.
Oh, thank you.
Provocative question maybe. Have you tried Emacs with Vim Shortcuts? I think it's called Evil Mod or something.
You mean SpaceMax?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard about it so many times. Actually, I haven't tried SpaceMax. No, I haven't. I think it's too late now. Like laser removals, they're very painful. No, I haven't tried it, but I heard very, very nice things about it. Very nice things.
I think we have time for one more question. There.
Good catch.
Hello.
Hello.
What is your opinion on Vim extensions on IDEs?
Sorry?
What's your opinion on extensions that turn out IDEs to Vim?
Oh, okay. My personal opinion, right? So I think those extensions they're useful, but I would advise against using them and just using Vim altogether. So I think like IDEs, they're very useful. There are many scenarios in which they're useful. Also, depending on the tool chain you're using, maybe they'll provide you lots of nice shortcuts and lots of things that will probably make your life easier. But I think that when you use Vim, so this is a problem I had personally, right? So when I got into college, we were mostly using Eclipse. Before that, refactor of the UI, which made things not so nice. So we were using that, and a very difficult thing for me to learn was how Java was actually working. So I knew how to write code, I knew how to make it run, but I had no idea what was going on behind the hood. So when I started using Vim and I went back to writing Java, I was like, oh, so I know how things work now. I know what's happening behind the hood. So that was very, very useful for me because I moved to the command line and I got down a layer of abstraction, so I knew more about the toolchain that I was using. But the reason why I think I would not use an IDE with Vim Shortcuts is because my problem with IDEs is mostly that they do too much magic. So you have too many magical buttons, right? When something goes wrong, you have no idea where things went wrong. Mostly you get just an output of the terminal. Maybe you already know the language, so if you used a CLI before, and you know like, oh, okay, I've seen this error, I know what it's about, then it's easier for you to solve. But if you're not down that level of abstraction, if you're just like starting out, I think it's not very productive. It might be having too many abstractions to make your life easier, but actually might be removing you from the knowledge of what's happening behind the hood.
All right, let's thank Lucas and
Thank you.
And see you in 10 minutes.
We have more chocolates there. Thank you. So nice.
Next talk will start in 6 minutes. Next talk will start in 5 minutes. We have 3 minutes to the next talk. 3 minutes. We'll be starting shortly within a minute, so please take your seats.
Бая хора. Вие всъщност миналото година пак бяхте сингъл трак. Бяхте тази година. То да ти кажа, важното е да експериментираш и да гледаш всъщност дали е имало ефект или е нямало, защото втория трак
right, all right, all right. Take your seats. We're going to start now with our next speaker. So, in Bulgaria, we have a very special word. This word is called adash, and it means a person with the same first name like you. My name is Radoslav Georgiev, and this is Radoslav Stankov, and we are Adashi. And Radoslav Stankov is a developer with more than 15 years of experience, and currently he is the head of engineering at Product Hunt. His talk is productivity for developers, so please a big round of applause for Adasha.
That's nice. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Like my Adash said, my name is Radoslav Stankov. You can find me online as R. Stankov pretty much everywhere. And I'm also organizing a small conference called HackConf in the beginning of the summer. As Radu said, I'm a head of engineering at Product Hunt. And today's talk, I won't have much code. I usually have a lot of code on my slides, but today I actually don't have a single line of code. But still, my slides are already uploaded here. And the reason I always upload my slides is I notice that during presentations, stuff like this happens. And I tend to switch slides really fast, really quickly, and people just lose the sight. Okay, I missed that slide. So yeah, the slides are already uploaded, and this will be my last slide. So do more. So today we are going to talk about this mythical base called productivity. And as everything in life, the thing we have to understand is everything is very context specific. It's very specific to ourselves, to the situation where we are at. It's very specific. It's always specific. It's always context specific. And let me tell you a bit about my context. The company I work for is a distributed company. Like we technically don't have an official office. My teams are spread across Europe, Asia, and US. So this is where my team members are. We work remotely. I'm here. And we work at a startup. And in the startup, we have this saying that we are moving fast and we are breaking fast, or having breakfast. Depends how you read about it. And my work is, the way my work is measured is not how much time I spend in the office, because I don't have an office. So that will be a negative spending on my part. I'm measured by my output, how much stuff I'm producing in terms of results. And that's my situation. And all the things I'm going to tell you about today is some ground logic around productivity, some science between some weird stuff, and I'm going to share some of my productivity methods. Because, let's face it, our developer productivity is not like a linear. During the day, we have ups and jumps in productivities. We have our own, and stuff gets messy really quickly. So this talk is more like Radu-approved methodology of how I work. The first term I'm going to share with you, it's called cognitive load. And this psychology load is how much resource we have in our head to get information. Like how much information we can store in our head. And cognitive load is actually connected to something called ego depletion. And this refers to the idea that every time we make a decision, even small decisions, takes part of our energy. Like imagine that, you wake up, you hopefully had like a good night's sleep, and you start with your full battery. And you wake up and, okay, what should I have for breakfast? Okay, one decision there. What should I wear for work? Another decision. You go to work. Somebody asks you, what do you think about last night? Film or something else. And you have to think about that. Then you start working and somebody asks you something, another thing. And by middle of the day, your head is already at low battery case. And you get into this mode where you're like just sleepy. Okay, I want to sleep now. Or you go to the worst case, if you're a part of this personality, when you get sleepy, you just get angry and you get explosive. And for me, like, I'm kind of a lazy person, to be honest. I don't want to work hard. I prefer to work smart. I just want to take some useful shortcuts and develop to be more smart on my work. And this is a quote from Ken Beck, and he says that he prefers to be a good programmer with great habits than a great programmer. And I kind of can relate to that. I want to have a good process, actually. And the way I define the word process, for me, it's automatic decisions for trivial questions and a framework to make other decisions. In better ways, make us make better decisions and don't need to spend so much energy in useless stuff, basically. And my process and the things I'm going to talk about today is first setting up goals. Then I'm going to tell you how we are going to reduce, how I reduce cognitive loading, how I use capturing knowledge, and then I will share some tips about doing some tasks efficiently. And most probably the most controversial part of my talk is all my processes are digital first and are only digital. Like a lot of people say, yeah, I just bring a notebook and I write those beautiful notes every day. I just don't do that. I try that. Unfortunately, I cannot read my notes afterwards. I had such a bad writing. Also, the type checking and spell checking on my handwritten notes is not as I want it to be. Also, a lot of times when I was taking like a notebook and putting my ideas, I got ideas in the weirdest places, like in the subway. And it's really hard to get out like a big fancy leather notebook and start writing in the middle of the subway. That doesn't work. It's easier to just get your phone, type a couple of words, get out complete, and get it out of your mind. So yeah, let's start. The first thing is the goals. Like, if we don't have goals, if we don't know where we want to go, we would succeed at seeing where we go. But we won't know, did we want to go there? So I personally split my goals into 3 buckets. I set up yearly goals. Okay, this is what I want to accomplish this year. Then I say, okay, what do I want to accomplish this month? What's my goal for this month? And finally, I have these checking points of weeks. Like every week, I have those goals. And I split my goals into 3 contexts. Personal goals, things I want to do for myself, or like, okay, what I want to be as a person and all of that. Career goals, okay, where do I want to progress? Because again, we have to work. And the other one, it's actually connected to the other 2 is learning goals. What do I want to learn? How I want to improve myself in the coming year? And I try to keep my goals to be smart, like specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. Or at work, since I work at a startup, we do this thing called OKRs, which the idea of the OKRs is you say, you basically define an objective and define a key result. And the example here is, okay, I want to be healthy, but what does a healthy person mean? What does it mean to be healthy? And the key result of being healthy can be, okay, I want to be this amount of kilograms, and I want my blood sugar to be that much, and okay, what then from having those key results, what do I want to do to achieve them? Okay, I want to go to the gym 4 times a week. I want to stop eating junk food. So I kind of do that. I'm starting to try it out. But again, I'm just trying to say okay, this is my goal, be healthy, do those, and see how it goes. But a lot of times when I say people about, okay, you have these yearly, monthly goals, and you have to do reviews, like every week you do reviews of your goals, people always said, that's too much time. I don't have time for that shit. It's too much work. It takes me too much time. I don't know. It's too mechanical. But I don't know. Like the time I spent for reviewing my goals and setting my goals is actually 1 hour per week, every week. I usually do Sunday. Like I just sit for 1 hour on Sunday, see, okay, what has happened this week to me? What did I do wrong? What did I do correct? How I can improve? How I do? And this is 1 hour. Like 1 hour. Like you spent 1 hour in the bathroom. Like you can do the review there. Again, every 4 weeks, the month ends, usually. So you just take an extra hour, combine it with your weekly review, and you say, okay, well, this month, did I achieve what I wanted to achieve this month? Did I get that vacation I wanted to get? Why I didn't do that? And it takes 1 hour, like basically 1 hour. And of course, end of the year, after the big Christmas overeating festival, you're already tired, but you can spend 2 hours just sitting and say, okay, what does my year? What actually happened this year in my life? Well, what were my high points? Like where I did good? What was the expected stuff? And I do that, and again, it's too much work again, and the way I diminish work is forcing myself to work. Like I use this app Todoist for tasks, this note-taking app Bear for notes, and this app called Day One for storing my reviews. So I have this automatic process. In Todoist, I have a reminders that every week, first day of the month, end of the year, and in my birthday, I'm born in May, so May is a very nice middle ground of the year to make like, okay, is this year going well? I just have a reminder which sends me a push notification, just do a 1 hour review at this day. And the other thing which helps me in this process is I use a lot of templates. I really hate to type. So I just have templates. Like every review I have follows the same format. My weekly review is like this. It's split into 5 sections. First is the goal of the week, which are split into personal and work. And did I do well or not? I use emojis because it has to look fun in the end. I say, okay, this week, what did it happen this week? What happened with my personal life? What happened at work? I also say, okay, what do I want to achieve next week? I write some random thoughts, like what was on my mind this week. Like, for example, this week I needed to do a lot of things, and one of the things on my mind was this conference, this talk. And I have like a small summary here in the bottom where it's like some free-flow text if I think about something. It's random text usually, with a lot of typos. The monthly retrospective, it's very similar. Again, I just copy the note, use it. I have the similar thing for yearly, pretty much the same format. And for me, what the biggest change I did this year is I added the emojis to tell me if I'm doing my goals correctly. And they are not only up and down, but this thinking emojis, because a lot of times you actually cannot see if your actions do stuff. Also, I'm very big into minor life hacks. So one life hack I do every week is I start with a really small goal. Like something which I can achieve probably on Monday, feel good about myself. If I don't do anything this week, I'll be feeling good. I'll be feeling happy. I'm moving forward with my life, and that's fun. And having goals, it's nice. Like, again, goals are out of my head. All the stuff is... The next thing I'm focusing is reducing my cognitive load. Like, my brain is not infinite, unfortunately. I have a battery in my head. Think about that. And every time I put and I do stuff with my head, it takes my energy. And I need time to think. Like, I think most of us, if we just do stuff, we don't have enough time to think. And the way I'm handling the cognitive load is I basically try to remove stuff from my head. And I remove those stuff from my head by those 5 things. First, I have a routines. This is stuff I pretty much do every day or stuff like that, which basically I don't think about those. Like, those are automatic decisions. Like, for example, going to a gym, doing a gym session, okay, I don't care. Like, I know what I have to do. My mind actually don't think about it, my body does. I have a lot of reminders. Like, everything I need to be done, it's in a reminder, okay, just do it. I don't have to remember, what should I do now? I use a lot of checklists. Like, in a lot of operations, a lot of things we do have to do a lot of steps. And I use a lot of templates. Like, I try not to write things 2 or 4 times if I can avoid it. And I do a lot of automations. So basically, the biggest focus for me is, okay, getting to what's next, getting to what's the next thing I have to do. And for those, I just use a to-do app. I just have everything there. I have, okay, what's the next thing that has to be done? It's there. For example, I have this flow that I'm just browsing the internet, see some interesting link, and the worst thing that can happen for me is I'm in the middle of a cool task, find a cool link, and now just start following it and go the rabbit hole of reading some stuff which is fun, but won't just going to move me around. So I have this process when I see an interesting link, I set a reminder that I will check this link in Saturday. I have 1 hour just blocking Saturday. Okay, this is my time to read some fun links every week. And if I cannot read the link, that means it's not important. I remove a lot of the links. Usually I accumulate like 20, 30 links. I read 10 of them, remove the rest because it's like too much noise anyway. The other example is I travel a lot. Like this year, I think I have been to 8 conferences, speaking at 6. And I travel a lot. So you know how bad it is to pack for traveling? Like all the stuff you need to forget, all that stuff which is always the same. So I have a checklist in Todoist, okay, what is the stuff I need to do when I travel? And for me it's that first I have a checklist of stuff I need to research for the country. For example, if you go to a country, can I drink water from the tap? Or I have to get a bottle of water? Like, that's a very good question. I check what's the currency there? What's the policy for tipping? Should I tip or should I not tip? And what are the power outlets? That's something you can actually get very unprepared if you travel. Also, I have stuff about the luggage. I basically have a simple formula based on like, okay, I'm there for 2 days, how much clothes I need. If I'm there for 1 week, 4 days, it's basically how much clothes I need. I also have stuff to do before leaving. For example, I don't want to burn my apartment. So I just go back and check if every outlet is turned off. Like, stuff like that. Because how many times remember, like I had my mother does this all the time. We're getting out, when I was a kid, going to some friends, and in the middle of the road, my mom is the stew on or is the iron on? Come on, now go back home and check if everything is off. Like now with smart lights and switches, you can actually mitigate that, but I still don't have that. Also, I have stuff I do every time I get to a new country. Like, for example, buying souvenirs. Like that's when I arrive at the airport, I buy souvenirs, put them in my bag, so I don't worry that when I'm back, my friends and relatives are going to be very disappointed I didn't bring them something. Also, I keep a document about all the information I need for when I travel. Like all the contacts, the hotel information, if I'm going to events, the dates, locations, bookmarks on cards, links to the Wikipedia page of the country, the city. It's good to actually know how many people live in the city you go. I also keep emergency phone numbers. Hopefully I have never used them before, but it's good to have them. All the flights. So I basically have this on my phone, so I don't worry. It's offline support and all of that. And again, one of the life hacks I do is every night before going to bed when I'm already tired, I just pack my clothes, and this is the clothes for tomorrow. Just get them up. So in the morning, when you get out, you don't have to think about, okay, what should I wear now? Should I wear this shirt or t-shirt? Which of my 2 black t-shirts I should wear today? That's a very deep question, which I used to have. And doing a lot of that, I noticed I started doing a lot of like capturing knowledge. Like this is the quote from the guy who wrote Getting Things Done. And it's one of my favorite quotes is like, our head is for having ideas, not for storing them. I basically try to put everything out of my head because I don't want to rely on that device here. It's not very reliable. So usually the process is in Radu's head, there is some idea, it happens. I store it into a bare note, very big shortcut on my phone, put the idea in, and if this idea needs to be acted upon, I put it into Todoist, like do something else. Like, okay, maybe I should buy this new lamp. Okay, add it as a to-do by it or something like that. So this is actually a real screenshot of my Todoist sidebar. This is basically my note-taking, my personal database. And if you notice, I have a folder called templates. Like I have a lot of templates. Like for example, I have templates for meetings. I have direct reports, so every one-on-one I do have the same format. All my traveling has the same format. When I want to learn a subject, I have a template about, okay, what do we need to learn, how I need to do it. And it's fun because I don't need to think about much that. This is like thoughts, like random thoughts. Like, for example, now I'm telling you something, and I have this nice idea which is coming to my mind. I would just stop, open my phone, go there, write this quick idea, and have it there. End of the week, I'm just going to pass through all my thoughts and think, that was stupid. Why did I think that? But I want to focus you on one thing, which I think would be very useful for pretty much everybody. It's my personal how-tos. It's just a set of documents for stuff I don't know how to automate. For example, I don't know how many of you use Macs, but there is this weird bug which happens sometimes where you lose your audio. And this usually happens when you use some conference call tool, and that's the fix basically. I actually don't remember the fix, it's over here. So every time I lose audio, I open this note, I do the things step by step. I work with the technology called GraphQL, and it has something called introspection. I always forget the syntax, so I just have it here. I also use a database called Postgres, and I always forget how I use JSON with Postgres. The syntax doesn't stick for me for some reason. So I have this file here where I have some code which I can just copy paste and play with this. And it's basically, I do this for a lot of like Stack Overflow things. And this is the life hack from this session. Like, it's very simple when you, for example, search an issue and you notice, I'm seeing the Stack Overflow answer 2 times now. Maybe I should just store it for safekeeping if the internet removes it. The next part is effectiveness. Like, the effectiveness, like you want to be able to do your task fast. Like, all that other stuff, it's nice, but if you spend 5 hours working on a single thing because you are constantly distracted, that's not very good. That's me, by the way, in this picture. Noticed no mouse, Vim user here. So there is one thing which it's called flow. And this is the state, like it's the state where we as engineers especially are very, like when you say the flow, everybody knows what we talk about. It's this moment where you just sit on the keyboard and you fly, like you fly to the tasks, like the code writes itself. Your fingers are just doing some weird behavior on the keyboard. And one of the biggest issues for the flow, the biggest killer, is called task switching. And and you can see it with this image. You are in the zone, everything in your head, like you have building these special symbols. And then somebody asks you, what time it is today? Do you think it's going to rain? And you have no idea what you have done, what you have thought like 3 seconds ago. Like you would need at least half an hour to get back into the zone. So this, especially since I work remotely, it's very easy for people to, like when you work in an office, like people say, yeah, people distract you, but if you look menacing, like with a black t-shirt with skulls, and you have like headphones, big ones, especially with red blinking lights to say in danger, people don't bother you much. But when you're remote, they don't know that. So the notifications just piling up on Slack. So I used to use a technique, I still use it, there is this Pomodoro Technique. People use it to get into the zone and focus. It's a simple technique. You say, okay, I need to do this. You set a timer, usually 25 minutes, might be more. You work on that task. You don't do anything else. Like, you don't do anything else. You put like a sign, don't bother me, don't feed the engineer sign here. And after the task is done, every 25 minutes, take 3-5 minutes break, then go to step 2. And after a couple of Pomodoros, you do that. Like, it's a famous technique. I used to do it. It didn't work very well for me. But the thing I started to notice, and this is the place where I use Pomodoro to this day, it helped me start focusing. Like, there is tasks which I know I have to do, but I don't want to. So what I say is, okay, I don't want to do these things. I will just do this Pomodoro for 25 minutes just to get me started. And when I get started working on it, after the first or second Pomodoro, the work stack works by itself. Especially good when you do boring work. Pomodoro is amazing because you say, yeah, after these 25 minutes, I'm just going to have to see what's on this YouTube video. I really want to see what's happened with this cat. Also, I use Pomodoro for time estimation. Like people are not very good at estimating tasks, or managers are particularly bad at that. Like if I ask you how much time something is going to take, the longer time you tell me, the bigger your mistakes is going to be. We tend to we tend to be over positive. If you tell me this task is going to take 20 minutes, how wrong can you be? Most probably you will be pretty right. 20 minutes, you can do it in 20 minutes. If you tell me this task is going to take an hour, it might take like 56 minutes or 62. If you tell me this task is going to take like 1 day, it will take 1 day and 2 hours from the next day. Like you over jump one. And imagine if you say this task is going to take me 6 months, usually it takes you 2 years. True story. And for me, Pomodoro also helps me for time boxing and experiments. Like, I'm wondering, should I pursue this very weird idea I have right now? And I can pursue it for like a whole week and not do anything if it's not successful, or I can do a small experiment for 25 minutes. So this is a thing I do with Pomodoros. Also, the other thing I do is I eliminate distractions. Like, I notice which sites I'm looking at, and I actually go to etc hosts with the one with the Unix machines and block those sites. Like basically, sometimes I just block Facebook. Like, okay, I put there forward to port 00 localhost and don't care. Like the world won't end if you don't see your Facebook today. It actually might get better. Also, I'm very aggressive with reducing the notifications for my apps. Like if I just, every time an app asks me, do you want to give me permissions to push you, I say no. And sometimes when I don't have what to do is I just go to apps and removing permissions for pushes, which I go through. And also sometimes when I do Pomodoros, I do the do not disturb mode. Like I go to this mode where nobody disturbing me. Like there isn't many emergencies happening. Like the life hack from this section is just try work 1 day, just 1 day with all notifications turned on. It will be weird, but you would notice how much work you do. And talking about like work and waste, like one of the biggest wasters is this thing called email. Like emails are like those cute bunnies. They're just piling on top of you. They're like this. So cute, so nice, this nice email for my friends. And in the end, you suffocate with them. You just get dead. So this is my inbox. This is a screenshot for like 2 days ago, but this is basically how my inbox looks like pretty much whole day. I have 6 inboxes. I have 2 personal ones. I have 1 for me, 1 for registrations on sites. This is the one which I use to log into most of the unimportant sites. I have 2 company emails. I have 1 email for my conference where I talk with speakers and other people, and I have another email which I have no idea why I use that email for. And if you notice, like I have 0, my inbox is 0, like every day. I have 0 inbox. I don't know how many emails I get a day, to be honest. I don't count them because I don't see them. So I use this small group of techniques. Like I'm very aggressive to click the unsubscribe button. If there is an unsubscribe button, I would click it. Like I'm subscribed to a lot of like newsletters. Like I get a lot of those developer newsletters where they aggregate links. There is actually, right now I'll be trying an app which aggregates all the newsletters into a single newsletter. So in the end of the day, I just get like 100 links, not 5 emails. Also, I try to move a lot of the communication I do out of email. Like in my team, we have the rule nobody emails me for anything. We just use Slack, where I can ignore it, when I can delegate it, and it can be more filtered. Also, sometimes you get some emails, which you just random emails you get. And there is this feature in most email clients, especially Gmails, where you can auto-forward those emails, mark them as read, put them in some random folder and forget about them. I have a lot of those. Like basically stuff which I don't care about, but I have to get. I use a lot of templates. Like for example, my favorite template, I don't care about your service, I don't want to use it, I'm not very interesting, please don't email me again. Because I get a lot of emails from services, oh, I think you would like to use our service, and I'm like, no. And the other thing is I have this rule. If, for me, answering this email is going to take me less than a minute, and you get really proficient at that, I just do it in the second. Like, often I'm just saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, bye, 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 and so on. And I use a couple of buckets. I have a to-do bucket where it's email which I need to do something and come back to somebody. This is often paired with like a reminder to do some work. I have waiting on somebody else. That's my favorite ones. Like just tell somebody else, yeah, do something, and okay, I don't care, you have to do it. And I have this third folder, it's called bookmarks. There is some mail threads where there is nothing actionable, neither for me, neither from the other side, but I just want to keep reference. Like a good example for this is when I organize conferences and events, I have email threads with the speakers, and there is nothing actionable at the moment, like we get their tickets, they agree, but I keep the whole email conversation there just in case for stuff, and I use reminders for follow-ups. The email client-specific features, which I really like, is having a unified email box. Like I have 6 emails. If I have to open 6 tabs or having switch between those, it will be a nightmare. I used a lot of the snooze notification. It's like when you swipe, usually it's with yellow color, and I push the notification from 1 hour later, 10 hours, never. Again, use a lot of templates, and there is this feature, I don't know, Android most probably supports it, but on iOS, it's smart notifications, like Facebook have this for Messenger, like, and a lot of email clients have it. Like, you have a desktop client and a mobile client, and you get notification on your phone and on your desktop that you receive an email. If you open the email on your laptop, the notification on the phone is just going to disappear. Like the Messenger has this feature. If you notice, you get a lot of messages on your phone, then you open the Messenger on the web, oh, the phone notifications are gone. That means that the notifications I see on my phone screen are the things I actually have to care about. So to repeat, that's my process. I get an email, quick reply, go to to-do, waiting, bookmark, and occasional snoozing. One of my colleagues, ex-colleagues, had this wonderful way of working with emails. Like this guy receives like 2-3 times more emails than me, and actually he still lives. Tools, like I'm an engineer, I really like tools. Like I like to have my tools. Like we noticed from the previous talk, like Vim, and again, Vim. But yeah, like you can use Vim, Visual Studio Code, Vim, I don't care, like whatever you use, I use Vim. You can use whatever, but the idea here is you need to tune your environment. Like those tools are very good, they're very general, but you are not a general person. Like you are very specific and you have your specific needs. So I'm going to share a workflow not with Vim, but with a tool called Alfred. It's an application launcher. So if you noticed, if you have paid attention to my talk, I use a lot of GIFs. And I have a shortcut in Alfred where I write GIF and the word awesome, for example. And this opens a browser with awesome, with Giphy. And it's nice, I search and I find this wonderful nail it GIF. I want to put it in my slides. But I don't know how many of you have tried to get a GIF from Giphy. Usually they're really good for embedding and not very good for direct uses. You have to, me as engineer, I just go Chrome, inspect, do and that. So what I did was I noticed this URL here, it's the ID of the GIF. And from this GIF, from this ID, you can actually download the video file of that. So I have this convert to Giphy shortcut where I just get the MP4 from Giphy. And this actually saved me, I think, a couple of hours of just randomly opening Chrome Inspector, like just basically nailing that. And this is a lot of what I do. Like when I do something more than 3 times, I get bored. I get bored very easily, and I don't want to be bored. So I just do some minor things with that. And the thing about it is the more customizations, the more you tune your tools, the better you get at that. And a life hack is like whatever editor you use, notice something you do every day with it, which takes more steps than you want to, and make it easier. Of course, I really like books, especially audiobooks, which some people argue are not real books, but I would argue falsely. So there is those 5 books which are really good for getting you, like, okay, productivity, like Pragmatic Programmer, I think is one of the really great books you have to read. Soft skills and peak performance are nice. The Checklist Manifesto is very interesting. It talks about the idea of basically having checklists and how they're different from reminders. Getting Things Done is a bit controversial book because it's a very mechanical thing. And from my talk, you would think I like mechanical, but it's too mechanical for me. But the whole book can be synthesized into 4 core principles. Like the first principle is capture everything. Like, again, your head, ideas, store stuff. The second concept is the concept of context, basically. The idea that you work in different environments. Home, you have tasks for home. You don't need to worry about your home tasks when you're at work, and vice versa. There is this concept of weekly reviews, which I think is one of the most important. The idea you have this dedicated time when you sit and think about what you have done, positive or negative. And the final one is next actions, knowing what the next action is. So let's do the quick recap. Like, we covered a lot of ground. Like, the best thing is that, I saw this quote somewhere on the internet, is that every productivity system kind of breaks because our life breaks. I mean, not in a bad way, but we evolve. And we cannot do much about it, but we just have to accept it and try to just get better. Like, if I give this talk last year, if I was giving this talk, it will be very different from today. And if I give it to next year, hopefully it will be different. So it's a very specific way. So today we covered like a lot of terms and vocabulary, like especially the cognitive load, ego depletion, and all those fancy words. Goals and reviews. This is, I think, one of the core things. Like, if you can measure your progress, seeing where you go and trying to optimize stuff naturally finds to place. Having routine makes you just be effective. And there is a lot of tools you can use. And you can use checklists, reminders, templates, minor automation. And again, the idea is just improve your workflow one step at a time. Just make this shortcut, like make this snippet in your code editor. Like, every time you define a React component, just make it a snippet. And yeah, that's basically what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.
Good job, Adash.
Thank you, Adash.
We have,
This word Adash really sounds weird in English.
yeah. I think what we can do one question, so raise your hand quickly if you want to ask. Please stand up.
Great. Hello, Radu. Thank you for the great lecture. Would you mind sharing your templates on GitHub if it's not too specific and too personal for you?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it very well.
Could you share your templates on GitHub?
Kind of. Some of them are actually with private, but yeah, most of those I can share them with GitHub. They're in my, I have a dot files. If you go to my GitHub profile, there's my dot files with all my Vim shortcuts, templates, scripts. Bare templates are not there, but I can move some of them.
Thank you.
No worries.
That's it. A big round of applause for Rado.
Thank you.
10 minutes break, back here, final lecture. After this, we're closing with prices, stuff, you'll see. 10 minutes.